play in the lobby.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our third special on taking back the streets in the city of Buffalo. This all began back in June when the city's homicide rate hit 38 for the year, an alarmingly high number. So we broadcast a community meeting from our studios with various city and religious leaders to talk about their concerns. And then we went to a local community center the next month and spoke to the city's youth to hear what they had to say about what was going on in the city of Buffalo. And now this is program number 3. Now, the murder rate has tapered off quite a bit since our first broadcast back in June, but still there are quite a few ideas about what to do to try and stop the violence in the city of Buffalo. And there was one theme or challenge that kept coming up.
Everybody just really more or less just beating around the bush. The fact of the matter is that we got a lot of money in the city and we got a lot of money in the county, and they always complaining about what we going to do about these young brothers on these corners, what is we going to do about these homicides, what is we going to do about the crime. Ain't nothing new under the sun. The problem been here. Just like the district attorney said, these guns and these drugs been here. Let's get past that. Let's get to the solution.
Right.
The solution is we got all the resources up here to do what we need to do.
Often television suggests solutions, and that's the last you hear of it. Well, tonight is follow-through. We've crystallized what people were asking for into several areas. We've presented the suggestions to those who can do something about them. We pressed for commitment. We asked for deadlines. We got answers. By far the biggest area of concern is jobs and money for the inner city.
There are tons of office buildings being built all around this city. There apparently are employment opportunities coming into this city that other people are not being given an opportunity to pursue. Obviously, if those companies are coming in, you have to be giving up some tax breaks, some benefits, and some opportunities.
The problem is they're not getting the jobs that they really need to pay $7 to $8 an hour and $10 an hour. Nobody want to work for $4,000 or $5,000 an hour.
We are shut out of a lot of opportunities that could build us up to stay here in Buffalo. And then they wonder why we leave.
I wish we had tons of buildings being built in the city. That would solve a lot of our problems. The fact of the matter is the buildings that are being planned to be built, whether they're the medical corridor or the Delphia project and others, will all have women and minority hiring requirements, both in the construction of but also the operation of. Yeah, I understand it. In a way, she's right, too. There's been a lot of job creation in Western New York, but a lot of those jobs are being created in suburban communities outside of the city and the inner city. How do you get those people to those jobs? How do those people understand and know those jobs exist? The fact of the matter is we are a community. We should be a family. And there should be a corresponding responsibility. Job development and job creation isn't just in the city and isn't just across the street from you. But how do we get those people networked into the jobs that do exist at a professional level and a semi-skilled level? We don't do a good job of that. And that's the community's responsibility. Well, we're going out and talking to every business in the community. Taxes are still the number one reason that
What do you
people
tell
leave.
them?
What do we tell who? The businesses?
Yeah.
Yeah. We tell them that we're going to hold their line on taxes, but if they need workers, we're going to help them get workers. If they need better city services, we're going to help them get city services. But people fail to realize the jobs have been created in this region, but they haven't been in the city of Buffalo. To me, I'm not happy about that.
Why?
And I got to fix that.
We're spending $90 million a year right now, Erie County and the city of Buffalo, through the federal government, through our workforce investment. We are providing job training opportunities, retraining for existing employees. So the programs are there. We've got to find a way to get these kids off the streets and into the programs. And the churches and the faith-based community is a huge piece of the puzzle here that we're working on with the mayor and others.
A lot of times we're trying to reinvent the wheel. So we got together with the city's referral unit, with the county who had already started doing this, and said, let us put together something so that parents have a one-stop shop book, be able to look, where can I find that answer? But then also, a lot of people don't know that there has been a central referral in this city for years where people could call. It was never really marketed. It was never really pushed. And as we change the atmosphere, we need to concentrate on those types of things.
The fact of the matter is a lot of kids just aren't aware where these programs are, how to access them. And on the other hand, the programs exist, the buildings exist, the people exist, but they don't access them. They don't want to participate. But as a city, we have, I think, a significant infrastructure of programs, of professionals. The problem is we don't integrate them well enough, like Boston does, connects the dots.
If you look at the workforce investment program, which, in my view, a lot of the people who have been hired have been hired based upon who they know politically. There should be an effort to put those centers right in the Broadway Fillmore area, where you have a high level of youth who have problems. There should be an effort to open up those opportunities to hire people from those communities who can then help provide services, employment, and training for many of those young people who know them.
They're saying we got jobs in the community, but they won't hire anybody with a gang relation background. And I'm one of those that didn't get hired, and I have a qualified background, and they refused me for a job.
Can the city, or does the city, have any kind of program where someone, say, who's had a checkered past can be semi-rehabilitated and help them get a job in the city?
What we're doing now is establishing a career paths program where we'll take people with minimal skills, people with backgrounds that are questionable, and give them an opportunity to advance through the various educational opportunities here in the city, with the community college, with EOP, and with other agencies, bringing them to the resources that will help them get their GED, help them clean up their record, make sure that they understand they're not going to get hired if they're doing drugs or there's other kinds of problems. But unfortunately, there are good people that have made a mistake, and we got to help them.
It doesn't make sense to throw away a person or throw away people because they perhaps didn't do well, say in school, or don't have all the credentials. I think in order to make the quality of life better and to give people good choices, you have to provide the kind of resources that will give them training, that will put them on a productive career track, and give them an opportunity, give them a chance.
Get an application at a job, and you bring it back. They don't want to call you back because they look at you, they look at me, I got braids and I got jeans, I'm a thug already, you know what I mean?
It's easier to sell drugs than it is to get a job nowadays, and that's the honest truth.
Perfect case. You scraping the good, you got there with them customers, yelling at you and whatnot, and for what? A penny? Come on.
That, to me, is a terrible excuse, though. I don't buy that 1 minute. I mean, somebody has to start in the employment process someplace. If it's $5 an hour, it's $5 an hour, and you get some skills, you get some training, and then you trade up on that. But I don't buy for a second somebody coming to me and say, I'm going to sell drugs because I can make more money. The fact of the matter is, selling drugs is illegal, and it's wrong, and it's detrimental to you and your family. The fact of the matter is, through now TOPS coming to the east side, the Apollo on the east side, other initiatives we're bringing will help train people, but also place them in jobs that pay more money. But it's a two-way street. You got to be more prepared, you got to have more skills so that you make more money.
You'll find that many of these young people will try to find a job or will submit their application, but nothing happens. And then they become so frustrated, they'll turn to the streets and they'll start dealing drugs or what have you, and make hundreds of dollars a day. I think there has to be a productive way to make choices, to bring those young people and to respond to those young people. And you've got racism and bigotry that still exists there. And I think a lot of the problem that they confront perhaps is not their problem. It may be the problem of that employer that needs to be more sensitive to diversity.
They look for a future, and it's kind of like, where am I going to go? To TOPS? That's not a future. That's not a future. TOPS won't even come into our community, but yet y'all want us to go work for them.
But maybe it can now. Earlier this month, TOPS finally made it official. It's going to build a brand new supermarket on Jefferson Avenue. The company also says it's going to enlarge and upgrade the current TOPS store on Niagara Street.
One of the reasons we're doing this is not just because it makes sense from a business perspective, but because we feel it's the right thing to do. And it's a good feeling, absolutely. Well, the new store will generate about 100 new jobs. And of those, we're going to have aggressive recruitment campaigns right in the community around the store. We are going to be developing training programs to give people opportunities to move up in the company if they have the desire and they have the talents. We definitely are committed to working with the city and identifying construction companies that can help in the construction phase.
So what's on the drawing board to improve the local job market? Entry-level and managerial positions and construction opportunities at the planned Tops Market on Jefferson Avenue. Jobs will be created through the planned Adelphia project and the medical corridor. Inner-city youth can seek employment with the help of the Career Paths program and the Workforce Investment program. A resource book for all kinds of programming available in Western New York is being printed right now. The next area of need we kept hearing about was programs, activities to keep young people occupied. While there are a lot of programs available in the city of Buffalo, many kids don't know about them or can't get to them easily.
There aren't enough programs going on within a community, but as a school administrator, I think there are a lot of programs going on in the schools and that our kids are not taking advantage of those programs because many of our students don't know that those programs exist. They're empty. Some of the classes, the after-school programs, tutorial programs, job readiness skills that are being offered within the schools. And so the lines of communication between adults, parents, administrators, educators need to be open more so that they are aware of what's going on. But I definitely agree that within the community itself, we do need more centers like the YMCA and Crisis, the other centers around the neighborhood. We only have about 2 or 3 really good ones within the inner city.
It starts in the classroom. Every day they should be reminded of what's available. The parents need to know what's available. The clergy needs to know what's available. And we have to continually reinforce to these young people that these programs do exist.
Does the city have a program where it's not just aimed at the kids, but at the entire family, get them all involved?
Not really. We don't do that.
Would that be a good idea? Do you know?
That would be helpful, but perhaps there are other agencies that are better at doing that. The county might be better at doing that. Maybe we have to become better at doing that.
A lot of people are afraid of our kids, and they feel that they can't talk to our kids. And interestingly, what I've seen coming from a background of working with youth is that a lot of these programs are there, but you don't have the outreach. And so what happens is that many of these programs will put notices in the paper or they'll put slingers out, but there's no outreach. There's no effort to go to where young people are. I was meeting with the representative for the National Stop the Violence organization, and one of the things that they do is that they teach young people what harassment is. They teach young people what assault is. They teach young people that perhaps there are behaviors that you're engaging in that are illegal. And so they begin to engage those young people. They begin to reward good behavior. They're coming. They're going to develop a chapter. It's in process. It'll probably happen before the end of the year.
I think that we should have more programs for our young people, like at the William Emsley YMCA. We like play in the gym, go swimming, and that'll keep all the kids off the streets. Even if you don't have the money to pay for it, they still let you in sometimes so you don't be on the streets.
Free. Everything is free in the Buffalo Recreation Department. We brought online new community centers. We're keeping these community centers open now in the summertime. And the fact of the matter is, most of them are very full and very active, both indoor and outside of those facilities.
When some of the kids that need to be in the programs most don't come from households that really can't afford for some of the memberships. And I think that looks at a greater need for funding to come into the city from our business partners, from others who are able to help certain households to be able to participate. The problem, though, is that some of the children who need this most are the ones who will never go into a community center.
Why is that?
Well, it's peer pressure. For some people, it's seen as kind of soft to be in a community center when you can be hanging out on the street and involved in some activity. So some of it's cultural.
When it comes to training, you'll find that many of the young kids come from impoverished families. They don't have money. They don't have the resources that many other kids have to go places. So you have to provide those resources through those programs. For instance, at the Johnny B. Wiley Stadium, we provide golfing programs, tennis programs, we provide track. We provide also education and scholarship programs to help many of the amateur athletes who have perhaps good athletic skills but poor academic skills. So what we've done is we've put together the academics and the recreation.
Also, I think there's a lot of programs out there, quite frankly, that either are being run well and are not in the right place, such as in our schools where they belong. Other programs, quite frankly, should be reviewed and decide whether or not they're good in the first place. And if they are, fine. If they're not, then we have to change those programs.
We're in the process with our department officials and with other agencies to begin the process of reviewing these programs, what works and what doesn't work. Unfortunately, there are some programs that, quite frankly, have been funded that we don't maximize their potential. I think they got to go, and we got to strengthen the ones that are working well.
How can you do that?
How you do that? By making a requirement through block grant monies, through grant aids, to other kinds of funding, that they meet their goals, that they perform the way they say they're performing. And in this day and age, we can't afford to have non-performers. Every single buck and every single professional has to be making a difference.
So 12 months roughly out.
Yeah, that process, though, Keith, has already started by identifying where all those programs are, who's doing what, and then getting the professional help from the School of Social Services at UB and agencies like the United Way.
I think the issue, though, is a lot of times you have to look at the quality of the services. And one of the things that I think is extremely important that perhaps is being missed. Young people want to have recreation, they want to have entertainment, they want to have places to go to socialize, but they also need jobs, they need training, and they want to have meaningful lives.
How many kids are getting in trouble at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, at 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night? When a lot of our programs close, you need to think about what they're doing later. A lot of kids are getting in trouble later in the night, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, when they're out. They have nothing better to do but
why
to hang
are they out at that hour?
Because there's nothing for them to do. There's
why aren't they home?
There's programs during the day. If you're 17, 18 years old, I know I'm not going to want to be in the house at 8 o'clock in the afternoon, you know? What is there to do afterwards? A lot of programs close 8, 9 o'clock. We have nowhere to go but to hang out. What are you going to do?
Parents have a responsibility to get their kids home, to supervise them. It's difficult the older you get to do that. But the fact of the matter is, what these guys and gals should be doing at that age is something constructive with their lives. In some cases, if we have to keep a community center open, then maybe that's what we have to do to 11 o'clock. And we'll look at doing that. If the Ys and the boys clubs, and I've been to them, they're having longer and extended hours. They're feeding kids at all hours of the day in these centers. But here again, it's a collective effort on the part of all of us. If that's an issue, then collectively, we got to find a way to keep these agencies and these buildings open to 11, 12 o'clock at night. I'm willing to pursue that. I think now, as the summer wanes, I think it gives us some time, because it's going to get darker earlier, that prepare ourselves for next spring and next summer. Where are the problem areas? What buildings can we facilitate and open to 11, 12 o'clock at night? I don't care.
So next spring possibly could happen.
Yeah, I think so, Keith. I think that's a reasonable thing. We can't do it all over the city, but I think where we have some problem spots, let's try it as a demonstration project. If it works, we'll expand it.
We have to provide other types of choices. For instance, Buffalo had a very successful midnight basketball program. But by the same token, if you had young people who are 17 or 18 years old who had changes in their mindset, who were looking at themselves and their families a little more responsibly, if you put them into a career path or training, you could prepare them. They could be preparing themselves for work, or they could be in situations where they were exposed to different types of training and career types of things that might be available, internships. But I think that we have to emphasize that when you're that age, your education is extremely important.
Block clubs, if every neighborhood had a block club that would do some community watching or some things at 11 o'clock at night, or just some other opportunities, even the churches as well, to do some things.
We're training block clubs. Our Mayor's Impact Team, the Weed and Seed program that we've initiated, are training block clubs and people to participate. We've expanded on them. We still have more to go, but what it was 8 years ago and what it is now, we have made phenomenal progress, but we need more of that. And
How many do we have, do you know?
I don't know how many we have. I bet we have several hundred block clubs in the city. Oh, sure we do. And they're strong. They're very great allies for us. And the more, the better.
Is it possible to get more block clubs, one in every single neighborhood?
Well, I think they're like anything else. You have to have an interest. And there's a lot of people that want to be involved in a block club. And there's many law-abiding citizens who want services delivered to them, including us creating a safe environment, but may not get involved in a block club. So you want ones that are active, that have an agenda consistent with what the Buffalo Police have.
Do you recruit for that? I mean, I know you're in charge of the block clubs.
Yes, through Police Community Services, we'll facilitate them in developing a block club. And then we also have over 350 neighborhood watch block clubs where they receive specific crime prevention training from the Buffalo Police Department.
We need people to be back involved in neighborhoods. That's not going to happen just by saying it. Again, if we don't concentrate in this city, not only from government, but to say government, church, the religious organizations, and the business partners, and the education system has to say this has to be our priority. So now you have to either put an office there that concentrates on making sure every street, and I mean literally every street, has some type of block club or has some type of neighborhood watch, every street. So that becomes a job. So maybe we eliminate, the person who, cuts grass in 1 hour a day or two positions that are not doing much to help. If we're going to concentrate on this, then maybe we do create a position that says we need to make sure that every street knows they have a linkage to City Hall more than their council member, because we have become a parochial city that says when I have a problem, I contact my council member, and now we have council members who are overloaded with work instead of saying, if we're going to have a concentration in this city, and if violence prevention is going to be one of those things, we need to hire people and have agencies set up to make sure that happens, because they're not going to just happen because we say them. We have to make a combined effort to make that happen.
What's on the drawing board for youth programming? The organization of a Stop the Violence chapter for Buffalo. A review of city-funded programs to assure quality and performance. A pilot program of late-night programming for older teens to be tested next summer.
And then there's education. What to do about that? Well, we heard a lot of interesting ideas over the past couple of months. Everything from teaching kids street smarts to keeping the school buildings open for longer hours, turning them into neighborhood or community centers.
One segment that we don't have on this panel is from education. I know we've had some teachers teach or talk, but I have many friends that are teachers. And for years, they've been telling me that kids come to school underfed, undernourished, poor self-respect. We expect them to learn and grow in a positive way, but they're not in a position to do that.
Does the city have a nutritional program?
No, it's not just
nutritional education.
But here's the solution. The solution is taking all those community-based organizations, from government to not-for-profit, and putting them in our schools like we have 15 of them, so that you can get health, you can get counseling, you can get other kinds of help right in the school building at a very early age. To me, this is a no-brainer.
And it's certainly possible to provide better managed care for children and families. If there's a child out in our schools that's having a problem, usually there are families in need as well. So looking at the children holistically and bringing services and resources where they can get coordinated care is important. We have quite a few sites, and we're working with a huge Closing the Gap initiative, and it's closing the gap with human resources and support for mental health, nutrition. We have a program that is a part of our schools with a breakfast and lunch program, but also a nutrition program. In the newly designed school, Makowski, we have daycare, we have primary health care services for children and families up to age 21. So the whole family can go in there after hours. They can get health care up to a certain time throughout the summer. It brings the issues that are close to children, the children we see every day, available, but we don't have to do it ourselves. Typically, if we don't have these services, we have children that aren't learning, and children can't learn when they're afraid, when they don't have good nutrition, when they need to see a dentist, when their parents are in such trauma that the child is in trauma. And so no matter how exciting the lesson is, the child isn't going to be learning. So we do need to find ways to connect our schools with these support systems that are in the community.
Is there a target date for getting?
Well, we're already starting. We've already begun. We're adding more this year. We started out with 6 schools. That's going to 12 schools, and we have to move that way because it's so complex to figure out how to set these up. And not every school has the same needs. Some schools already have a primary health care clinic, for example, but they need mental health services and support in that area. So there's so many ways you have to look at each school as a unique entity, even though in the community we know we have high poverty rates and other issues around student health. And a lot of it is even connecting families to health services that are almost at no cost for children, ensuring that the children's health issues are covered.
Well, we have on an ongoing process brought these programs to our schools. Every year we're going to add more schools to it. I've talked to Bob Bennett, our regent. I've talked to other people, and we're looking at ways to get the money to take the 25 lowest performing schools in our city and make them community schools. Bring all the social service, health service, counseling programs into those schools, and that's the goal of this administration.
When could that happen?
I think you'll start to see that happening this September and over through the next year, but those kinds of programs work. And teachers will tell you what's wrong with young kids.
But
and the
why is it a couple of years? Why couldn't we do it in 6 months?
Wait a minute, Keith. We have 15 now. They cost money. You have to find the resources. You have to do the collaboration. I don't mean to get defensive because it's my idea.
That's okay.
And I think they're great. But getting everybody to buy in is difficult. Getting the bureaucracy to deal with it, both in the community, in the school system, and in government, is difficult. But we are doing it. We need to do more, and we're going to do more.
Are there role models out there?
Yes, there are, but the thing is, there's not a resurgence of them in this community. In my 13 years of schooling, I've not had one black male teacher. And there was an article in the newspaper just last week about the lack of male teachers and the lack of minority teachers because they understand where we come from.
It's a huge problem, and we've just finally, hopefully, come up with a solution. It's been something that we've all believed very deeply that is necessary. We do need to have role models for students in teaching and in every area actually of life in this city, where we have 70% of our population is a minority population. And one of the issues that has kept us from being able to recruit and even retain and get the teachers from our own wonderful Buffalo State College that has many students that live in this community and would want to teach here is the fact that we had an antiquated legislation that required teachers to take a test, take an interview, get on a list, and then one by one be called to take a job. By the time that whole process finished, no matter how early it was started, what happened is everybody took a job somewhere else. So not only do we have an issue around getting more minority teachers, which we desperately need, but also certified teachers in some critical areas, such as mathematics. And so one of the things is, it's another great accomplishment through the support of our Western New York delegation, because they went and we had to legislate. People don't understand that it wasn't the district doing this. We had to legislate the ability not to have a teacher, a local teacher test and list. Now we could recruit, for example, minorities from out of state. And we can say, you have great credentials, you're hired.
So
we have never been able to do that. The only thing that we're waiting for is for Governor Pataki to sign the bill. It was passed unanimously by the Senate and by the Assembly. Once that's signed, I can send recruitment teams out, and we can say to folks, you're hired.
In fact, 2 days ago, Governor George Pataki signed that bill into law right here in Buffalo at the Mikowski School.
I think this is an important day for the Buffalo City Schools, but we also know that to make sure that we get the best possible teachers here and across this state for our kids, that we have to have respect for our teachers. We have to give them the authority in the classroom so that they can have safe classrooms and attentive students. And we're proud of the steps we've taken to empower teachers to get disruptive students out of the classroom so that the students who want to learn can learn, and the students who refuse to learn aren't a nightmare for the teacher trying to teach that child.
I also am very pleased because the school board and the superintendent have assured us that this will enable them to reach out and bring in a very diverse staff in the teaching situation. Buffalo school system is over 70% people of color, and we need more African American and Hispanic men. We need people of all races and nationalities, because Buffalo is a melting pot of all races and nationalities.
The last year and a half, there's been a dramatic change because of the leadership of the board and their working relationship with this mayor. They get it. They understand that we have to really focus a lot more energy, not only educationally, which is important, but also in dealing with the holistic development of a child from pre-K through 12th grade.
I'm a first grade teacher, so I can tell you that if we start teaching children young what a bullet does to a body, if they see that early enough, if they realize what one killing does to a person, a family, then maybe it will make a difference.
I heard one of our judges say there are two things that if people learned, we wouldn't have the conflicts that she sees on her bench, and that is, I'm sorry, and I forgive you. And if children can learn, and we're doing a lot with that in the schools, to begin to look at conflict resolution, character education, and an understanding of certainly that these are not cartoons when people get killed.
What's on the drawing board for the Buffalo schools? The addition of more community schools that incorporate health and social services. The hiring of minority teachers as role models. Character education for students in the early grades. What about crime itself? Can anything more be done to stop the violence than is already being done? Unfortunately, the most obvious solution is not that easy to achieve.
I think the number one priority is to rid the city of the guns. That is my thinking. Getting rid of the guns, then everything else will basically fall into place. Guns, people are just too easy to kill people. There's no love.
How easy is it to get a gun?
Easy, man. It all depends on who you know. If you know the right person, got the right money at the right time, got you a burner.
Now, I know this is a huge problem, not just in Buffalo, all over the country. What are you doing right now, and is there anything recent or new that we're doing to try and get some of these guns off the street?
Well, we're continuing a lot of the programs we have. First of all, I agree with that citizen. Guns are the problem. And the problem is that they're accessible. A lot of them come from Ohio. So we have a variety of different measures in attacking the guns. We have a gun abatement program, which we received national acclaim. And in the year 2000, we took over 1,000 guns, 1,016 guns off the street, just in the city of Buffalo. This year already, we've taken 734 guns off the street to date.
Quickly as they get the guns off the street, they're coming in.
Well, it's not an impossible, but I could not tell you that we can reduce all violence or that you'll never have a gun problem. But I can tell you that in 1994, we had 94 homicides, and last year, we had a record low.
Firstly, New York State has the toughest gun laws of any state in the country, but still isn't good enough because our neighboring states of Ohio and Pennsylvania have very weak gun laws. They're very easily moved into places like Buffalo and other cities in New York State. They're very easily gotten in the hands of the wrong people. So we have to figure out a way, and the federal government has to, own up to that responsibility to help put an end to the manufacturing of these guns, these handguns that, quite frankly, serve no purpose, assault weapons, than to kill people.
There is a big market here now for guns for illegal purposes. The federal government has to step up in one end. Locally, our police department has been functioning with certain details and with certain expertise to help take guns off the street. We're doing that. But the fact of the matter is they keep coming in. As soon as we take them off, more are coming back in. It's a big business, and it has to be dealt with at all levels of the law enforcement community.
As mayor, what do you need? You need more money to fight this problem?
It's a two-way street. We need more money, no question about it, because you have to have more police personnel deal with that issue. We have to have the public come forward and say, you know, police department, mayor, guns are over here, they're being sold there, this is where they're coming from. You have to have people collaborate, that kind of thing. But I think in the long term, Keith, you'll never solve this problem as long as manufacturers can keep making guns and keep making guns when the demand and the legal use for them doesn't exist.
There are no gun stores on the east side, so how are they getting over there? There are no poppy seeds grown on fields on the east side, so where is that coming from? It's like it's put there for a reason, to bring our kids down.
How are you able to get guns and drugs into the community so readily, even to the point where young people are able to sell them on a consistent basis and even have a market? But yet you can't get regular jobs for them in those communities, or those young people are not given the choice of you know, getting a regular job or trying to get other resources that would help them become productive citizens. And I think that the objective reality is that it feeds on young people and it victimizes them, because in the final analysis, they're either going to end up dead or in jail.
We're just seeing people who are afraid. But let me say this very quickly. There's a three-step process that is real clear, and we keep talking around it. But one is that one of the greatest ways of crime prevention, especially violence, is to change the economic condition of the masses of people. That's number one. If you don't look at that, then we're missing a piece. The secondary prevention is to target the vulnerable persons in that community. And the third is to prevent the reoccurrence.
In other words, how many times can a person victimize a senior citizen before they get locked up for a long period of time?
I think the community is becoming more intolerant of crime, and that's helped us a lot because it's forcing everybody to look at this thing in a more seriously nature. I think the results of the convictions for possession of weapons are resulting in severer penalties.
I want to bring back the canine dogs. We feel that when people look out their door and see a police officer with a canine dog on the corner, they'll feel safe to be able to walk to the store and not run a gauntlet, and even our students on the way to school.
Can you bring back the dogs?
No, they're a waste of time, a waste of effort, and they're not effective and efficient. We put police officers on bicycles. We're putting them on scooters. We're putting them back walking the beach during the summertime. The fact of the matter is we're trying to negotiate one police officer cars for low crime areas. But the fact of the matter is this issue is far greater than dogs on the street.
We have a canine division. We reduced the canine division. We still have one, and they're working very effectively. We have a narcotics dog that works on search warrants in the narcotics division, and we have dogs in the traffic division that are utilized for bombs and for narcotics.
So what do you tell people like this who are concerned? They have the perception that that unit should not have been cut back.
We have a canine division, and it's functioning. And the reasons for the cutback was our inability under the restrictive contract we have to deploy them in an efficient manner.
So it was very expensive to run that unit?
It wasn't even a question of expense. It was a question of being able to deploy them where needed, when needed.
Because of the union rules and things like that?
Because of the restrictive contract.
Would it be possible for you to try and change that in the next contract?
We did. We suggested modifications made to the contract to allow us the flexibility. When that wasn't granted, we had no choice but to reduce it. But also addressing the concern of dogs on the street when affecting crime. When somebody has a dog, it's hard for them to make an arrest. It's hard to handcuff somebody. The dogs are a deterrent. We use them wisely. But really, we've deployed these individuals in a more efficient manner. I think you got to eliminate some children's role models in certain neighborhoods are the criminals, and they're not getting the guidance from their parents. And that's where we have programs like the Police Athletic League, where we try to get to these children that are in impressionable young age that could turn to crime and try to turn them in the right direction and create better role models from them, because unfortunately they're not getting into their home. We're trying to implement one-officer patrol cars. In most of America and most of urban America, most cities have the ability to deploy their people more efficiently, and you have 2 cars with 1 officer in each car. You see the police more, the citizens like it, and it helps us fight crime
So you're
better.
trying to do that right now. Is that going to happen, do you think?
Well, I think that depending on the chronology of the court, hopefully that it will be decided very soon. One of the concerns of a lot of citizens are when undesirable people are merely standing on a street corner. And they may be criminals who at that point aren't committing a crime. The only tools we have are laws. And if they haven't violated the law, we can't really enforce conduct. But we are looking into the potential of a city ordinance that would address some of the loitering concerns. And Chicago was successful in having one enacted, and it went up to the highest court in our land and was upheld. So we're looking to see if hopefully we can do something like that that will give us another tool in the city of Buffalo to help us fight crime.
One of the themes repeated again and again by the young people we spoke with was faith, the role of faith in their lives. Faith that provides hope, strength, and a sense of a higher authority.
Programs ain't gonna do it. It's different. It's spiritual. Our spirit is gone. What we gotta do is come together, take community control of what's ours, raise the spirit in our own hood, and elevate ourselves so we can come together as a people. That's what's gonna stop the violence.
I'm not afraid of anything but God, because that's the person who put me.
The faith-based effort in violence and in the negatives and ills of our community. It is so important that people understand the concept of I didn't arrive here by myself, and that there is something larger than I that I'm responsible to. It gives people hope. It gives people conviction. It convicts people. And I believe the church, and I believe that's why our county executive, why our mayor, and others in government are beginning to see that the faith-based community is important because it does more than give communion on Sunday, but it gives hope that there is somebody bigger than me that I'm responsible to and that I'm responsible for by the way I live my life.
The church is sort of neutral ground. I mean, everyone understands the church, and the church is a place where not only are you able to deal with real issues, whether it's finding employment, education, etc., but it also deals with your spirit and your faith. And I think a lot of young people and adults have lost faith in themselves and society. And when you begin to look at the type of violence, the cold kind of violence against a senior citizen who's disabled, or an infant who is abused, or just shooting down a person through a drive-by shooting. I mean, those are just indications of a lack of morality and understanding of what who we are and who you are and the importance of life. And I think that the church provides that umbrella. And going to the church, or at least getting the credibility of the church involved, lends a sense of stability and foundation that I think is extremely important. We have faith-based initiatives. In fact, this Stop the Violence program deals with ministers. We're working with St. John's Baptist Church, Shiloh Baptist Church, many churches that are reaching out, building family life centers. The Bennett W. Smith Family Life Center. Refuge Temple has a family life center. You have Bishop Halton, who's building a family life and new church. Many of the churches are building these facilities to provide services and to provide a place where people in the community who perhaps cannot get answers anywhere else, young people and their parents and older people, to come and get services, and at the same time to get the stability that they need to change the way they think and change the way that they relate to each other.
In every church in this city, on the first Sunday of every month, we're going to deal one-on-one with our young people about violence or about this or about that. It has to be an effort that, and I can't say it enough, that is more than just talked about, but that is organized and that is put together from every facet in our community.
Probably the most exciting news we heard during the making of this program was about a trip to Boston many of these leaders took recently. Boston is making a concerted effort to stop the violence, starting from the very uppermost level of government, church, education, and law enforcement. And the effort is paying off.
The police department in Boston and the churches are the ones that began the crime-fighting efforts. It was not the mayor, it was not the council members, it was the police officer on the street who got tired of seeing murder victim after murder victim and said enough is enough. It was the churches who said, we're tired of burying our people, enough is enough, let's get rid of the Democrat and the Republican crap and the conservative and liberalism, and let's see how do we affect change in our society. Because what they learned is this: if you don't stem the rise of violence, I don't care how many economic development zones you have. I don't care how good of a school system you have. People are not going to move in to your area. Businesses are not going to relocate. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to get quality employees to come and move into your area until they see that there is some type of effort to change the atmosphere in that city. I think there's an effort underway. I'm hoping that the momentum we left Boston with becomes Buffalo momentum, not carbon copy of Boston, because we have our own problems. But I think people have to begin to stop complaining about what other people are not doing and begin to talk a positive message of what am I going to do.
When we went to Boston to look at the anti-violence program they developed there, they really had initiated from the police department and connected to the schools so that everybody, again, it takes everyone in the community. They all became involved, and actually we're looking at a model of that, and we're going to begin in a couple of our schools where we will be bringing folks together from probation, from the courts, from the schools to say, okay, what is it that's happening here around the students? And what is it that we know about a student that we could do to be preventative?
We all cannot forget where we came from. We cannot, no matter what our station in life, we cannot be afraid to go back on Carlton Street or Cherry Street. And we have to connect in all ways. Go to where young people are and listen to them, invite them to your office, develop programs not for them but with them. And in many cases, I think that those young people are the ones who will provide the answers for whatever the problems are. And I think that the attention is really a question of communication. And I think we have to do more of that.
I think in every aspect, from police to youth programming to collaborations with other agencies that will help young people, to education, to job training, every single category we've started years ago, and we're going to continue now to make an investment to move that agenda forward. You just can't do one thing.
We've pushed the Adelphia issue. We're trying to get the youth department to provide resources, the Boston example. Trying to get that workforce investment board to become more responsive to kids in Kenfield, Langfield, around the Broadway, Fillmore area. There are a lot of things that we've been pushing. I think the question, though, is that we have to organize for the long haul, because you still have a lot of people who will respond to a TV program, but when it comes to doing things to change that, that commitment isn't there.
We come from a city of good neighbors. People don't believe that, but I really believe that all in all, when Buffalo needs to pull together, they do. The blizzard of '77, no one had to say, I'll give you $100 to go out and shovel out your neighbor. We knew because the entire region or area was covered with snow. We saw there was a problem. We came together. Folk came from the suburbs on snowmobiles. I remember it. And even our last blizzard, the blizzard of 2000, people came from all over to help one another because we knew there was a problem. The news said there was a problem and we needed to come together. I remember going over to the hospitals and transporting kids out of 4x4. Nobody had to pay me. Nobody had to give me money. Nobody had to start a program. Nobody had to do anything. It was the atmosphere that was created by an act of God. Well, imagine what happens when an atmosphere is created in a city that says, first of all, we're the best city in the world. You got to believe it. You got to know it. What separates us from being even better? Our crime. our economic development. So how do we do it? We start from the front, what we consider our head. We start from City Hall. We start from County Hall. We start from the state. We start from the churches. And we say, and you want real concrete stuff instead of just talking about it like I'm doing now? When do we say the meeting is going to be on this date? And this is the agenda. We are going to get together, not to blame one another, but we're going to get together, and this is the idea of the process. We need to look at three things, and you need to come and tell us how you fit into this puzzle. If you want to be a part of this puzzle, we're about to change the atmosphere. We're about to take some of this money that we throw away to breweries and pubs and that kind of junk, and we're about to put it into a big, huge campaign to stop violence in our city. And we're going to let people know where all of the pieces are, because we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There doesn't need to be one more program in this city. I don't believe there needs to be another basketball brought in this city. I think the programs we have need to be boosted up. I think that the basketball programs and all of those things, we need to celebrate them, advertise them. It needs to be a part of our fabric. If all we say is for the year 2002, we're going to have a goal in this city to stop the rising tide of violence, and everybody gets on board, it all of a sudden, you begin to practice it. You begin to preach it. You begin to do it. And now it doesn't become something that happens just in the summer. It becomes something that happens year after year after year. And now what you find is that it's just a part of the fabric. And people who say in New York, I'm going over to Buffalo to sell drugs, say, you know what, I'm not going to Buffalo because these people are crazy. All they talk about is anti-violence and anti-crime. And the people are not afraid to call anymore because they got these mad dads who will escort you to court, and they got fathers groups who will take you, and it becomes a part of the fabric. And people say, stay away from Buffalo. It's the golden cow. Stay away.
So let's review what's been promised tonight. In the area of job development and employment, Tops Markets has committed to providing 100 jobs at its soon-to-be-built Jefferson Avenue store, along with a training program that will focus on training neighborhood job candidates, potentially for managerial positions. There is also a commitment to use construction firms from the neighborhood for the building project. More jobs are going to be created in the Adelphia project and the medical corridor. There's a commitment to train workers to fill higher-level positions in these projects through the Workforce Investment Program and the City of Buffalo's Career Path Program. In the area of programming for youth, a Stop the Violence chapter is kicking off in Buffalo by the end of the year. The mayor has begun a review of city-funded programs to see which are meeting their goals and which are not, in an effort to make them more effective. And he's also committed to trying an experiment, keeping city programming available into the late evening, hoping it will keep young people off the streets. That will start next summer. In Buffalo schools, the effort has begun to create more community schools that will serve the needs of students and their families in areas of health and human services. The lowest performing schools in the city are earmarked for this project, in hopes that the target services will enable children to learn more easily. New legislation eliminating a local teacher test and waiting list will lead to the recruitment and hiring of new teachers this school year, targeting areas like math and science, and with an emphasis on minority teachers. The police department is trying to create more visibility on the streets by suggesting the implementation of one-man cars in lower crime areas. And they're investigating the possibility of a citywide loitering ordinance that they think would increase their ability to get criminals off the streets. Area Baptist churches are planning a citywide Stop the Violence Sunday aimed at area youth. They're also working with the city and county to put out the word about the great variety of programs available to their congregations and neighborhoods. A resource book of programs for youth recreation, job training, healthcare, and other areas is being prepared through the efforts of the inner city churches. And we want to remind you of Erie County's Central Referral Service at 851-5555. The folks at the other end of the line can guide you to any program offered in the area that suits your needs. It's a resource that every citizen should be aware of. If you forget the number, it's on the first page of your phone book.
So in the weeks and months to come, we're going to be reviewing these goals. We're going to go back to the power people, the people in the city who can make change, to see what's being done.
And we'll evaluate the ideas presented tonight to see if they're working. Meantime, let's finish up with some messages about what each one of us can do to help stop the violence and take back Buffalo streets.
Who are we talking to? Who's going to help us get these things? I don't see anybody. Who's here that's going to do those things for us?
Which one of y'all are going to make a personal commitment to make sure that they get a job? Which one of y'all going to make the personal commitment to make sure that they have somewhere to go?
Get out there, reach out, touch them brothers, see how you can help them, and give back to your community and stop playing.